Hello, good to see
Hello,
you.
good to see you.
I'm sorry for the delay. I didn't have Discord app, and it did take me a while to get it there. Apparently, there is also a 5 minute delay. Your account has to be 5 minutes old at least to join.
Oh wow, that's news to me. Okay, good to know. Well, it's good that it wasn't like an hour long, so we made it.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So everyone, let's see, because I need to check if we're recording. This is very important. Let's see. So, okay, got it. We got the recording. So everyone, welcome to our community stage, Maria Vechtomova. Maria currently works at one of the largest corporations in Netherlands as a machine learning lead, tech lead. I was going to ask what there's a difference between a manager because I saw you like a manager and a tech lead, so we can talk about that too. But Maria has an impressive background in machine learning and production. And since we are hosting this challenge for this month, I thought this would be a great idea to bring an actual expert, a practitioner in the field, and ask all the burning questions that we had as a community, and also great get some like more knowledge from your experience. So I would love to maybe. So this is going to be a fireside chat, and this is very laid back. But I would love for you to tell us more about your background. How did you end up in this field, and how is it going for you now? Yeah.
sounds good. So I'm Maria. Very nice to see the audience here. And I didn't know that you had such a big channel on Discord. That's pretty impressive. So yeah, I'm in data and AI for over a decade. I started as a data analyst, moved into data science, and last 7 years, my focus has been on machine learning engineering and MLOps. I built a MLOps framework multiple times all over again with different set of tools. So I probably can say I've seen it all. And yeah, conclusion after trying to do it so many times is that it's about the principles and not exactly about the tooling, even though the tooling gets better over time. It's way more mature now than it used to be 7 years ago. Yeah, I can tell a bit more about my current role if you're interested. Yeah. So I work at Akodal Haze. That's one of the largest retail companies in the world. We have 19 brands all over the world, mainly food retailers. So in the US, in Europe, in Indonesia as well. And I'm part of the central team, and we help the brands to bring machine learning models to production. Within our team, we also build machine learning models, and our subgroup acts as machine learning engineers. But we also provide a platform and framework to other machine learning engineers within the brands. So it's kind of a double role. My formal role is called manager, so that's why I'm a manager on my LinkedIn profile. Basically, we are managing the brands, but rather than the team, I would say. And I'm also a tech lead, so basically, I'm taking decisions on how the framework gonna look like in the future. Um, and well, I also can say I'm kind of a product manager, so I kind of combine three roles, and I still develop things myself to stay hands on. So it's pretty broad role, I would say.
Yeah, that is great. While I was looking at your LinkedIn, I saw that you also educate people. If you guys do not know, Maria started Marvelous MLops, and they write amazing technical, in-depth articles about how to put models in production. So what you should definitely check it out. But also before that, I could see that you actually worked in the data space for, is it now almost a decade? And I was curious.
More than it's like 10 and
More
a
than,
half or
I could
something. Yeah.
I could only imagine like how many changes you must have went through, like the the architectures, the tools. But correct me if I'm wrong because we're just starting out and curious about the dynamics. of the industry.
Oh yeah, it changes all the time. I think if you look at more than 10 years ago, as analyst, I worked with different kind of SQL databases. I think now machine learning engineers and data analysts are really used to blob storage as the source of the data. Maybe some still have some SQL databases, but it's not as common anymore. We didn't really have automation back then, and the concepts of CI/CD pipelines were pretty much unknown to data analysts and data scientists. No one has heard about version control. We had some, shared file systems where we put our code. Code was mainly in R, so now it's Python everywhere. And I started learning Python myself, 8 years ago. Uh, I knew R from my studies. I did study econometrics. So R was the common language, for the study, but also for the field. It was quite common. And we had a server standing in a separate room where we would, schedule cron jobs. It's pretty crazy if you think about it now. Like, yeah.
Sounds medieval to me. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, it was 10 years ago. It was normal. There was no clouds. We had some racks in the data center, and we went there to look at them sometimes. It was fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so because I thought like R is mainly in the industry. I mean, in the academia. You know, it was
Yeah, it is very common for statistics, medical studies, econometrics. It's also quite common, I would say. Yeah, it's still common there. And it was also common for data science. 10 years ago, it was the language. But then, I know, pandas became very popular and you could do a lot of things in Python. And it is easier in Python if you want to, build APIs and things like that.
yeah. That's great. You know, it's like it's almost like opening a Pandora box talking with you. It's like I do not know where to begin because there's so many subjects that we can possibly cover. But I guess one of the most burning questions, at least like for me, because I do this for my own sake. I'm kidding, guys. This is all for us trying to learn how to break into the industry because that was the common like approach when trying to break into data science or ML fields. Most people that I know, they think first part is like a data analyst. You have to start with like small, and then you can progress your way towards. But in our last talk, we had a person, also a senior data scientist, tell us you actually do not have to start from data analyst job. You can go ahead and build your project right now and then aim for the machine learning position or the data science position. So it looks like you've done most of these roles. And what would you say for someone who is just beginning, maybe a couple years in their career, in the data career? What should they focus on if they really want to get into that cutting edge ML ops or machine learning scene?
I mean, who says it's cutting edge, really? No, I think it's about what interests you as a person. That's the most important. Maybe some people love analyzing data sets and do some, analytics engineering. That's what they love doing, and well, that they should totally keep doing it. I don't think demand for any of these jobs will go down in the future. Um, so yeah, it's really about what you care about, what you find interesting, and that's what you should pursue. I guess people consider all these, AI engineer roles maybe more sexy than data analyst roles. But I think it has to do with the hype cycles that we are in. And now we are in a very large hype cycle. But I think we really close our eyes to real problem in the industries. Like the data is a mess everywhere, and such a big mess. And there is no way we can, do anything proper in AI if we haven't fixed that. So we definitely will need more MLOps engineers, ML engineers, and data engineers in the future. And you see the tendency already. I mean, the engineer, if you add engineer to any role, it does sound more sexy immediately, right? Like a analytics engineer. That's, I know, a year ago it wasn't a thing, and now everyone is hiring analytics engineer. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's. I love that you're bringing us back to the fundamentals. And the other day, I mean, the couple months ago, I was doing the search too, like on what is the most in-demand job in data, and surprisingly, it was data engineers that are doing this like fundamental pre-processing work, or just like giving the infrastructure for the data scientists and analysts to do their job. But yeah, but honestly, for me right now, I think I fell into the hype way before the ChatGPT came out. I was like, maybe I should get into NLP, and because like language part, that's what fascinates me personally, and how we're now turning into LLMs is also like that's
Yeah.
where, especially in Silicon Valley, everyone is understanding the potential of it, and all the investments are going that way, and therefore people are trying to learn these new tools as fast as they can.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I think NLP is not really new. So when I worked at the telecom company, NLP was a big thing. Basically, every service-oriented company cares about NLP because customer contact is a very important piece of it. The customer chats, customer calls. You would like to understand why people calling. Maybe there is some problem going on, and that was a very important part of the business. So classifying emails, things like that, to forward it to the right agents. It was always a big use case with a lot of business value. So I was also doing NLP, this chat classification, call classification, and yeah, I don't. So I think it's really, if there is a business value, then probably those companies were already discovering it in one or another way, and now it's actually easier because you have these AI powered labeling tools, or tools to find out the problems in your data sets. But if there was no business case like 5 years ago, it's not gonna suddenly appear there. So I don't believe in this hype. So if some companies already cared about it, they will definitely benefit a lot from LLM revolution. But companies that didn't care about it that much, I really doubt that these business cases will suddenly appear. So yeah, most of those projects may die out because of the lack of the business value.
Hmm. I see. So always focus on the business problems first, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I guess going back to the people that, because most of the questions actually that we had in the forums were all about how do we break into ML ops or machine learning engineer positions, starting from almost the scratch. What is it? What is it that we need to focus on? Because I know there's
Mhm.
lots of tools out in the
Um,
ML ops space, especially. And how would you like approach? Is it from the tools perspective, or the fundamentals perspective, or the business problem? Where can we start?
yeah. So at Marvel's MLops, we created a roadmap. Maybe we can put a link somewhere to the roadmap, where we recommend different steps to, to take if you want to get into the space. MLOps really requires a lot of skills, I would say. But it drills down to main concepts that you have here. A lot of them are coming from DevOps. So you have, you need to have version control. You need to have CI/CD pipelines, proper way to create repository with all the permissions you need, orchestration tools. You need to have something for compute, something for serving, model registry, feature stores, all of that. So it doesn't matter, I think, that much what tools in each of these concepts you pick. Probably you would be better off just picking the most commonly used tools. Like I would say, I don't know, if you look at cloud providers, probably AWS is the most common one. So look at AWS and see how you can deploy infrastructure, which is also can be considered part of MLOps. And there are different ways to deploy infrastructure. Terraform is probably most common, but you can also consider to use AWS CDK, Python CDK, which is actually very nice. So you deploy infrastructure, all of these pieces you need, and then try different tools. Like there is AWS managed Airflow, which you could use for orchestration. You could use SageMaker for model endpoint deployment, or also orchestrating the compute. So there are just go look at what is the most common and just try it out, build a project on your own, and I think that's how you learn.
Yeah, that's you named a lot of cloud services. Is there like, I know everyone has this burning question, which one should I learn first? Is it you, so you're saying AWS? Is there like a category? Because I know, like for instance, with Azure, it's mostly for like old school large corporations that are using it,
Mhm.
especially in Europe. That's what I heard. And like Google Cloud Platform, as I hear from people in the industry, it's more like from this for the startups. But AWS is also like one of the largest. Does it matter which one we go?
I don't think it matters that much, to be honest, but well, probably you have better experience with AWS than with Azure. Um, so I used AWS quite a lot in the past, but now I'm using Azure because we are in Azure, and yeah, I don't like it that much. So don't start with Azure. There is a chance you will hate it. Um, so yeah, AWS just gives a better experience in my in my experience. That's just how it goes. And it just, yeah, you will have better time learning it. And then if you need to switch to another cloud, then it's not going to be that hard. The concepts are still the same because for each of the services, each cloud provider has something. Like there are, I think there are a lot of cheat sheets going on. Like this is service, how it's called in AWS, how it's called in Azure, how it's called in GCP, and got it all covered. So concepts wise, you just take one, learn it, and then if you have to switch to another, it's not that big deal, I would say.
Interesting. Yeah, we can move away from the tools because, as you said, there's lots of content out there regarding them. But what I am curious about, honestly, is how the team dynamics works. Because you mentioned that you're also almost like a product manager, and we have now like teams that are working in collaboration to submit their projects. And one of the questions was, how do we manage people? Like how do we get the requirements for the software or for the product, or even come up with the
Mhm.
valid business problem that is approachable? So how does it work in your environment right now?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't like that much how it works for us at the moment. But yeah, I can explain maybe how it works for us and how it could be better. So within our central team, we also have product managers who are not AI product managers. So they don't know anything about machine learning. I mean, they heard about it. They care about like product in general and like personalization or loyalty programs. That's their product, and they talk to the brands that come up with some feature requests. Like they want to have a change on a certain page. They want to do certain A/B testing on a certain page. So these are requests that they come with to those product managers. Some of these requests require machine learning, and some don't. So that's why they're not ML specific product managers. They work a lot with the front end team as well to implement certain changes. But machine learning is a very large part of the product because you need some recommender systems to provide recommendations. And for personalization is basically personalized offers to the customers. So you could imagine Coca-Cola has a certain budget for a campaign, and they say, well, okay, there is so much money, and we need to allocate this budget towards the customers that are most likely to generate more value in the future if you give this discount to them. Um, so that's basically the whole allocation of this discount and how much percent of gonna be for whom. This is a machine learning problem. And basically, machine learning, I would say, is the main value generator in those projects, but those projects are not seen as machine learning projects. And that's why any collaboration regarding machine learning project changes are very complicated. Like if you want to do A/B testing, there's one of the examples. A/B testing on the website, like changing the color or changing the position of certain thing, is very different than A/B testing on a machine learning model, because in that case you just need to call two different APIs, and they tell you, well, we used to do A/B testing, but in A/B testing you just load different files and don't call different APIs. But for them, they don't get the difference. They just don't understand why is it so fundamentally different, and you just can't follow the path that you had. They're not technical at all. And just doing A/B testing took us almost a year because of a lot of misunderstanding that we had. Yeah, it's annoying. And how it could be better? Yeah, well, you need to have AI specific, ML specific product managers that understand the challenges, that understand how it works, that understand what requires to do anything, any change related to machine learning products, and how you can track it in the future as well. And when you don't have this understanding, it's just like talking to a wall. It's very frustrating.
That is interesting, because I now I have a follow-up question regarding that. You said I always wondered how people can manage the project if they do not understand the requirements, the technical requirements to it. But the question is, what is the more important? I guess, does it depend on the company maybe, but is it more important to have the domain expertise, and you can break into it as a product manager, or just as an individual contributor, if you have a domain knowledge, domain specific knowledge, or it's mostly that you need to have the technical skills as an MLOps practitioner to break into it?
Well, I probably don't need to go as deep as a person in MLOps, but you need to, I know, you need to have some technical experience in the past. If you haven't had any technical experience, you just can't, yeah, you just don't get it. That just, yeah, as I said, talking to a wall. And there is no way you can explain it to this person. Just like, no way. I tried it very hard many times. um, yeah, it just doesn't work. Uh, you can't do anything about it, just fundamental skill missing. And I think that's what companies don't realize. Any product nowadays is ML product. And most of ML, of these product managers, don't have any technical skills. And there is a huge gap, yeah, in this industry that I see that we need to do something about.
Interesting. So you're saying there okay, so you're saying there is a gap in terms of like specifically product managers that needs to be more technical, or just in general?
Product managers need to be more technical.
I see. Okay. Okay, that's yeah, that's interesting how, like, I thought they are already technical, but yeah.
Um, I guess it depends on what company, but I don't think in corporates product managers are technical enough.
I see. So I guess the workflow of the project, and depending again on whether you're a startup or a larger corporation, because you just mentioned it took 1 year to finally launch like A/B testing, you mentioned,
Yes.
and partly due to bureaucratics. I don't know how it works in Netherlands, but or the company. But so the workflow, if you were, let's say, there is a team of like 2 to 6 people, and one of them
Mhm.
is a PM in the team, and the other are like analysts, scientists, or machine learning engineers, and they're trying to come up with one project, and they're trying to understand what are their responsibilities,
Mm.
what is the dynamic, how does it look like from point A to like the last delivery.
Well, I think there is a fundamental difference of how the team was originated. So, if there is a team that is originated within the business, you don't have this problem because business wanted that team to exist, so they have a problem to solve. And then you don't have to push anything to anyone. Business people comes to you with the questions, with the problems to solve. Sometimes there is an R&D department that doesn't have a direct business coming to them with a request. Then and so basically it's like a pull push type of development that you have. Um, when you have these business requests coming in, you don't have this issue. But when you just, go research what kind of problems you want to solve within the organization, you find the problem, and then you kind of solve it, or you did a POC and you think you can do it better, than the current situation, and then you try to push it to the business. But that is hard. So it's also, I mean, this business may not care, even though there is clear business value. They may have their own agenda and why they want or don't want certain things. So you probably need to align from the very beginning with the business, find the stakeholders, what kind of problems you want to solve, and then prioritize on them, and yeah, I guess distribute the work depending on what needs to be done. I think for different projects, this distribution would be different. A lot of business requests, come to make a dashboard. Then you probably need a lot of analytics engineers, analytics people, and less machine learning people. But if they request to, build some demand forecast or anything like that, then you probably need more machine learning engineers and less analysts.
Mm,
It really depends on what kind of problems you solve, but just solving something that you think might be a good idea and then trying to push it to someone, that's not, yeah,
I
not a
love
good
that.
idea.
I love that because actually, when we had a Q&A for the challenge, people were coming up with great ideas, but very ambitious technically. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of finding those real world problems, what we usually do is we think of like current existing technical opportunities that we can solve, instead of like thinking about, oh, how, like, does it actually matter, do who will benefit from it. So we had one example. I'm not going to say names because people might, some of them might be here, but in general, that was a project. Some of you may heard somebody said, I want to there was a woman, she's from like one of the Central Asian countries, and she said most of the chatbots that we have now is either in Russian or Kazakh, the other language, and we want to create a model that can combine those two and understand those two, because many countries that are bilingual, they just
Mm-hmm.
mix up their words. And she's like, why don't we create a model for that? And I thought that's a great idea for the project, but when it comes to the real world, you would at that point would want to ask those companies that are in need of those
Mm-hmm.
chatbots, is that a common thing? Or so I guess in this case, we as you said, we have to talk to the stakeholders first.
Yes, you need to understand what is their problem. Maybe they don't care about it that much. I don't know. It can be. I would really do research. If you, I don't know, starting a company, it just like works with anything. It doesn't matter whether you are a startup or part of a large corporate. Actually, I think there are less differences than you think with between startup and how corporates work. Because in corporates, you are part of some department, you need to get things done. It's also going searching for funding for the right people. Like it's the same thing all over again, like in the startup probably. But yeah, within a corporate setup. Um, but yeah, it's ultimately finding people who care and ask like why they care, what is their problem, and try to solve that instead of solving some I don't know,
Mm.
mythical thing probably.
Mm. So I was curious about, from your own experience, when you go through, I don't know if you've had, but when you go through and choose a potential candidate, for instance, for to join your team, and what do you look at when it comes to their projects or previous experience? Do you care about the collaborations or how they communicate with the stakeholders at all, or?
Well, it depends who you're searching for. So if you're looking for a manager or someone who needs to coordinate things, those things really matter, like how they collaborated. But if you just need, if you have a clear plan what must be done, then and you just search for an executor, a good executor, this would be a very different, search and different requirements. So yeah, you just need to understand who you're looking for.
I see. I see. Okay, that's those were my one of the burning questions, guys. This is a fireside chat. It's been more than 30 minutes. I still have lots more questions, but I would love for you guys to chime in and get this opportunity to ask Maria about her experience, uh, whatever that can help your career too. But um, let's see, I have a list of questions that we can go through. Most of the people really want to know about more of your own journey, because not that many people have been in this industry for that long because it's so new. And I guess they just want to know more about how you've been transitioning.
Okay, I could tell about that. So yeah, well, I started as an analyst because there was no data science position really back then. I studied econometrics and or economics. I never cared about economics and actually just never liked it. But I don't know, for some reason I was a winner of a Olympiad in economics in Russia, and it's yeah. I mean, it was just like the path for me to that I have chosen for whatever reason. But I never really liked it. But what I liked coding in R, and I liked working with data, like macroeconomics and econometrics projects. So when I finished my studies, I wanted to look something related to the data, and data analyst was, I guess, the only real position available back then. So data science positions didn't exist in Europe, or in the Netherlands at least. Um, and I was building churn models and acquisition models for mobile subscription for telecom company in R back then. Then I moved to another team. It was more data science position. Those positions actually started opening back then, and moved to Python, and we deployed our first endpoint, and we couldn't bring that to production because well, there was no one who could do it for us. So we started figuring it all out by ourselves, how to create CI/CD pipelines, how to do version control, the orchestration, all of that, where to deploy, how to do authentication. Yeah, basically anything that takes how to request certificate. All the steps. Um, and well, we figured it out, and we thought it's a good idea to make it available for other data scientists. So we created a project called Model Factory, and it was a setup that allowed data scientists to bring machine learning models to production fast without thinking about things themselves. We built our experiment tracking system with Teradata as a backend and model registry with JFrog Artifactory. Basically, you can store files there, like a blob storage kind of thing, and you can assign attributes to the files. And that's, when you start an experiment, we were creating run ID, and git commit hash was also part of it, and then you could assign these attributes to a file, to a model that you store. So basically, 7 years ago, we had our own experiment tracking and model registry. Um, MLflow didn't exist back then, so it was quite funny. And then we migrated to private cloud with Kubernetes. We moved everything to Kubernetes native deployments, and we had Elk Stack for monitoring Grafana dashboards. Jenkins we used for CI/CD pipelines. We had Airflow for orchestration. Then we migrated to AWS, and then we built everything in AWS native tools. And now we are on Azure, and we use Databricks stack in Ahudelheze. So yeah, we have to figure it out how to do it with these tools. But yeah, it doesn't really matter what tools. It's just about the principles behind that. That you need to track things. Like if you have a model deployment or model run, for each run you need to know what data was responsible for the deployment to run, what code was responsible for it, what model was generated, and all of these pieces together. And you want to roll back to a previous version at any moment as easy as possible. So this traceability and reproducibility concept is crucial.
Mm.
And it is harder for MLOps than it is for DevOps because of this data piece, and artifacts that you create are very different than you would have in a standard DevOps setup.
Yeah, how are they different, and what do you mean by artifacts?
So well, you when you run a machine learning model training, you first of all you have a data that when data changes, everything can change, and you don't have that concept in DevOps setup. Like if you create any application, then changes in data distribution don't affect your application. But in machine learning model, when your data distribution changes, it changes everything. Even though code is the same, if data is different, everything is not working anymore as expected. So then there is also a model artifact itself. So even if code doesn't change, model doesn't change, but data changes is still screwed up. So there are just more moving parts than you would have in a standard,
Mm,
DevOps cycle.
mm, interesting. And where would you host that reproducibility tech stack to just observe everything and make sure?
It doesn't matter where you do it that much. So, for example, we use Databricks, and for each of the deployment. So, for example, you can even deploy endpoints of Databricks, and when you deploy things, it comes from the model registry, and that's a model registry that comes from that experiment. When you look at experiment or model registered model, it has tags like what code, like git commit hash. It has git commit hash, and it also has run ID to trace you back to the exact run on Databricks, like job run. And then you can also go back to data version, like using feature stores.
Mm,
So if you kind of collect all these things and make sure that you have tags everywhere, then you know how you came up with these results, and you can also go back if needed.
Is that related at all to the observability thing that is going on now?
Well, it is, I guess, the whole reproducibility concept and traceability is crucial for observability too, but I would say it's a separate concept. When you have observability, you also need to track back everything. Uh, but observability comes more to also to model driven, data driven concept, which you don't. Well, it's not part of traceability and reproducibility. You don't care about those things, but for observability, you do.
Okay. Yeah, we have a first question. We can respond to Gita. She's saying, "Hi Maria, I'm a PM with a tech background. Have led teams to experiment projects that need ML. Learned ML. My work doesn't take me into actual coding. My engineering partners take care of the entire life cycle of MLOps, which is kind of a black box to me. Do you have any recommendations on how I can learn more about the MLOps space?"
Yeah. So this roadmap that Mary posted in the chat, I think that would be a good starting point to check it out. Um, so in general, I think there are a lot of good resources that talk about the concepts. So there is like this the MLOps org resource, which we also mentioned in the roadmap. We also have an article about this, like MLOps tool belt. What are the pieces in it? So that I mentioned, like there are concepts of version control, CI/CD pipelines, orchestration, compute, all of that. Um, you just need to understand these pieces, like why they matter, why it's important for MLOps. So I guess that's an important piece there.
So Maria's content is a starting point for anyone who wants to learn more about the space. So Mr. Loki is asking, can you please talk more about frameworks and architecture design patterns you use for the project? And can you please talk more about CRISP DM and other industry practice you know and use and different life cycles? So yeah, that's a good question because like that's crispy DM is something that I wanted to recommend people to use to come up with their project ideas. But what do you use for the frameworks, I guess?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love the name Mr. Loki. I love Marvel. That's why we call it Marvelous MLOps. So that's perfect name. Um, so architecture design patterns that we use. I guess if you're talking about the infrastructure architecture, if you mean that. We use Databricks a lot, and if you look at Databricks has all the pieces you have in this MLOps tool belt. So I mentioned things like orchestration. Databricks has Databricks workflows, which act as an orchestrator. You can do compute on Databricks. You can, create a modular serving on Databricks. You have feature stores. You have vector search, like a lot of components. So you can pretty much do end-to-end ML ops on Databricks if you wanted to. The
Wow.
same would go for AWS, I guess. So there is no one design pattern. It really depends on what you have in house, and I think that's the most important piece. If we didn't have Databricks and we were just in Azure, it would be very different design pattern than I just described. Uh, because well, we don't have Databricks, we have other things then.
Yeah.
So it's really you need to start like, what do you have? You probably already have some orchestration. If you don't have anything, maybe some other team is using Airflow. Well, go ahead and use it. Then don't deploy any other orchestration system. If you already have Kubernetes set up, like, well, then just use it. Don't think about other things. So just look what do you have already in your organization and reuse, because there is a lot of overlap with DevOps, and there is a lot of overlap with um, with other teams like data engineering teams. And it's the best for everyone to have as much as overlapping stack as possible, in my experience, because it just makes collaboration much easier. Um, but if you have very specific requirements for ML projects, then we totally need to look into that.
Mhm.
When it comes to reusability of machine learning projects, like probably in large organization at least, like 80% of the use cases require the same type of architecture. They well, like we have almost everything is a recommender system and maybe some demand forecasting. So the setup that we use for deploying is pretty much the same. And then the concept that we have is that we have a repository where we set up how the repository should look like, and we have a workflow that people can run to create the repos, and it will create all the permissions. It will update all the permissions for the repo to deploy things on the cloud infrastructure after it is created, and it also follows the best practices. So that's for us how we actually reuse a lot of concepts between the machine learning projects. Um, yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting how you said like it really depends on what you have now, but unfortunately, many of us do not have the current tech stack for all the required industry required things. Yeah, but if because that's what I was gonna say, because the learning curve for cloud platforms might be very steep. And what about can we just use maybe open source tools and just host it somewhere, just I don't know, as simple as we can, and have those main components together.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of deploying open source things within corporate organization, at least, because someone has to maintain it. And maintaining like open source deployments is just not fun. Like yeah, you need to do security patching, all of these things. So if you can go for managed, please go for managed, because it will just you know release you from so much headaches in the future. But I can imagine for startups is different, because you don't have such a tight security requirements that come from CISO teams. Um, yeah, so if you incorporate, probably depending on your setup, deploying things yourself and maintaining things yourself can be quite painful. But in the startup setup, it might be an option, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, Mr.
Really
Lo-
like this
yeah.
saying, it's amazing. In
What'd
the
you
chat.
say? Oh yeah.
Lucky. Yeah.
Mr. Lucky distracted us with his gifs. Okay. Oh, great. So Sergey is asking if someone is trying to get into ML related work, how do you think we should approach learn ML theory and background compared to ML ops?
I think it really matters what you want. Because in machine learning you have different types of work. It might be that you don't even like MLOps, but you like more, working on algorithms and fine tuning machine learning models. Um, if you want that, then you probably should not go that deep into MLOps. You need to understand the concepts, but then you really need to spend time, do more machine engineering work, going deeper into the project and trying to solve those project related problems. Um, yeah, and if you like MLOps more and really like the operation side of things, then just invest time into that. But you don't know if you don't try. So I guess, first maybe try it all to a certain extent, go broad and then go deep in what you like.
That's a great advice. Yes, I realized, even like with learning with anything, it's good to go over the main concepts, everything, understand conceptually, and then just choose one and go and build something related to that.
Yeah, but it can be that like you chose now and you liked it and then you change your mind. That's also totally fine. You don't have to stay with your decision forever.
Definitely. Sadhana is asking, with many companies having LLM and Gen AI experience requirements for ML roles recently, is there any difference in the model management and traceability, especially data side of things, when it comes to larger models?
Well, I'm not sure that actually, many companies have those requirements. I guess it depends. Probably in the US more than in Europe. From what I've seen is that a lot of projects actually don't go, um, beyond calling ChatGPT. So yeah, it doesn't really require that much. So there is no model management there. Basically, you don't have your own models, but it really depends on what kind of companies you apply for. If I look at like corporates in Europe, everyone is very cautious. So there is some experimentation going on, but nothing really going seriously into production at the moment.
Following up with that, what do you think are the most common models then that are running in production? You mentioned recommender systems and forecasting. Are they the main bread and butter of the?
No, it depends. Like, it depends on the industry. If you look at telecom companies, or banking systems, I think anomaly detection is a big thing. Anomaly detection, NLP. So large language models there are probably more popular, but nothing is going into customer facing yet because everyone is very cautious there. If you like classification models, are also very popular. They're in demand forecasting for, yeah, for also customer centers or for other things. Um, yeah, if you look at retail, recommender system is a thing. Obviously, personalization recommender systems. This is what is very popular there, and demand forecasting I think is everywhere a thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Sadhana is also following up. Was wondering if traditional ML engineering skills transfer to LLMs, neural networks, I guess,
Oh
rather.
yeah, totally.
Mm.
So, if you just look to any deployment of anything, you need to know, how to work with version control, how to build CI/CD pipelines. All those things matter. How to version your data, how to track things. Actually, I think LLMs are not any different than like old-fashioned NLP applications. Like they're not really very different. In those, we also cared a lot about human feedback. We didn't have any fancy systems for it, but we did track it as well in our own way. So, really, there is less difference than people think that there is between NLP and LLM applications. The way, at least, it is used in the companies.
Hmm. So you're saying like the MLOps part of the models do not really differ much from one another?
Well, it has a bit different requirements, but overall, it is not as different as people may think.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gita is asking, extending the same question from Sarana, how does the ops look for GPT type LM enabled chatbots on corporate data hubs while ensuring security that trained info isn't published back to the open source?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't. Yeah, it depends. So basically, in large corporates in Europe, um, Azure OpenAI is used a lot. So basically, it's not this open ChatGPT that is everyone is using. We can guarantee. Basically, Microsoft is saying that they guarantee certain things, and corporates trust it. Um, so yeah, I guess it's really depending also how what kind of data you work with and what kind of industry you are in. A lot of corporates are very risk averse. So we have, for example, internal knowledge based systems. Basically, it's an internal um, system where you can search for HR questions and all those things. And we have an application there, but it's only for internal use. It's not customer facing. So those things are not cared about that much. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's by the way, I was meaning to ask too with the internal tools, and is there different teams that are responsible for the internal team of internal ML tools and different teams that are responsible that are customer facing?
It depends, I think, on organization. We have a different team that works with Gen AI applications.
Hmm. Interesting. And also, by the way, guys, remember that Europe is so different when it comes to regulations than America.
Oh,
I was curious how how strict it can get in Europe and how has it been with LLM? Are they keeping up with the regulations?
well, I think Europe is very cautious because of that. So as I said, I don't think anyone has really customer facing applications. So there are companies like Zalando, Booking.com um, that actually have something customer facing in beta, but it is very limited, and I'm not sure it will keep existing for as it is for a long time. Um, so yeah,
The
I know it's complicated.
Definitely. But let's see what else we got here. Who's next? Oh, Mr. Loki again. What are the tools, skills you really liked that your team have? What are the skills that you wish they had and that would have made your life easier? Asking so we know we can learn them now.
um, what are the two skills that I like the team have? So I think we are hiring people that are in general quite heavy on the ops side, so they know how to work with CI/CD pipelines and orchestration systems. Just because of the way how our team operates, we just do a lot with it. Uh, we could do better on the monitoring side. I think monitoring that we have is just more on the project basis and not that much um, not centralized as it we would like it to be. Because we have a lot of recommended systems, a lot of things could be shared, but they are not. You can't use standard model drift detection as you use for classification or regression tasks, just because you don't have this ground truth defined. Um, so all these things that we have are quite custom, and that makes it also hard. So on monitoring, we could better. So I wish we had more of this specific knowledge of how to monitor our specific type of application. Yeah.
By
But
monitoring is the same as observing, right? Observe, or are those two different concepts too?
well, we have an article about it actually, monitoring. Um, yeah, it actually, these are considered to be two different things.
Hmm.
Um, and there is a lot of discussion about that, about that. So if you look at ML monitoring in general, there are different levels of it. It's going into system health monitoring. It going to application level monitoring, whether the application itself is healthy, and ML specific monitoring. Altogether creates kind of observability of your ML systems. And all those concepts really matter. And yeah, I think we are kind of good on the infra type of monitoring and on in general, and on the application level monitoring, just because those are very known concepts in DevOps. But ML specific monitoring is just something that we haven't gotten right. And especially for recommended systems, I think that's one of the most painful things. If you look at the state of the tools that are out there, it's just not that good as it is for classification and regression tasks.
These are the details that we wanted to hear because we it's like, by the way, the relating to these tools, I know whenever we chat on LinkedIn, you always mention the gazillion list of tools that could be implemented. What do you think we could give it a try for those fundamental components of building the CI/CD pipelines, having the orchestrator on, and just mimicking, I guess, the real world situation better?
Well, if I need to mention some tools, I really like Metaflow. It's not exactly an orchestrator, it's just the way how you define your DAG, how you define dependency between your tasks. But you need to have some orchestrator like Airflow with it, or if you deploy Metaflow natively on AWS, it works with step functions. And it's really a great tool. I tried it back in 2019 for the first time. And the documentation is really great. And you should try Metaflow. It's really cool. And Databricks is actually moving their workflows to Python, not Pythonic definition of it as well. I think they got inspired by Metaflow a lot. When it comes to the model endpoint deployment, I think Bento ML is really nice tool.
Mm.
It's like fast API, but better. So it's more like a model runtime definition. It's a nice way to embed your model into the Docker image.
Hmm.
So you should try that.
Yes.
Also, another tool that I like a lot when it comes to CI/CD pipelines is Dagger. So with CI/CD pipelines, what I hate the most is if you anyway if you have GitHub Actions and you can't run them locally. Really, I mean, there is tool called Act, but it's not exactly the same as it is on a GitHub runner. So it may be that things work locally and don't work on the runner, and the other way around, especially if you some custom things. So I mean, it's annoying. But Dagger is just defining your CI/CD pipelines in Python, which is really cool. So not all this ugly YAML definition, especially if you need to do some, I know, some custom logics like parameterization. You can't do Jinja on top of these YAML files, right? You can't, because it has to be the end file already stored in the system. But with Dagger, it's just Python. You can do anything. So it is really impressive, and it runs everywhere. It runs anywhere, and you can do as many things with it as you can with your standard CI/CD definition. So I'm a big fan of that. And as a result, you don't have thousands of commits with try again. It failed. I tried again. I mean, we literally have these kind of commits. I can make a print screen of those. It's actually nice to try.
Wow, those are great way to begin also to break it down and just explore things separately with separate tools.
And Dagger was, by the way, created by Docker creators,
Oh,
and so yeah, Dagger is cool.
everyone check it out. You should definitely get some partnership or collaboration going because I know it's not the first time you mentioned them. I love it. But let's get to our questions. Mert, our famous Mert, everyone. He's also a moderator of this community. But Maria, job market is saturated right now, and it's really hard to get into MLE. Even in the internships have 7-step process. What kind of projects we should build to outstand from other people, especially when it comes to full-time or recent grads?
Okay, that's interesting. So, if I was hiring a recent grad, I think it would be from what for me would stand out is that people have a really clean project, not like some ugly notebooks everywhere, but a really clean project with proper documentation, with proper Python packaging. Um, so for me that would totally stand out because typically you have all kind of mess in the repositories and you very rarely see clean code. So clean code would be for me a nice part of it. Would definitely stand out already because people don't pay attention to it. And then almost no one does that. People usually do something that works from your machine. Like, you deploy some infrastructure from your machine. You do something from your machine, but nothing is integrated in CI/CD pipelines. No one puts effort into that. And you should, because that makes a difference. Like literally, no one does it. So if you, even have some, token stored is as secrets, and then you connect to the cloud in infrastructure from there and just deploy things there, it will already be different than most people do. So just having a nice ML project is not enough, but adding these two things to it and nice monitoring as well, that would make a big difference.
Great, wrote it down so we don't forget. Okay, so Sergey is asking, I think ML monitoring example is like setting an alert ping if a KPI below a threshold so people can manually look into it. Is that how it is?
Mm, well, yeah, there are different aspects that come to it. So let's see. Um, but the example that is given by Sergey, it's more an alerting example. It's not a monitoring example. Um, so if something is failing or some checks aren't going through, then you get a notification. But then actually, what you need to have is a proper, dashboard. When we think about monitoring, we typically think about the dashboard, which includes multiple things. Like I mentioned, there are three pillars of it. There is as infrastructure health monitoring, there is an application level monitoring that your application is actually running, and the third level is ML specific monitoring. So actually, you need to include all of them, and if something isn't running, people need to know. But when it goes to ML specific monitoring, um, there are different checks that you can do. Like if there is data drift detection, there is also um, and like maybe some data quality checks that you are doing for your data that also can be part of the monitoring. It may be more on data side, but still very important. And if there is something related to the model drift, um, there is a nice library called NannyML, for example. That's maybe another tool that I would like to tell about. Um, it's about training a nanny model for your classification and regression tasks. So basically, uh, not many, it's nanny, like a nanny, like a nanny to a kid. Nanny. Yes. That. So you basically train a nanny model. on based on your normal model that you build for your regression classification, and it predicts an error that you get on your prediction. So basically, your model creates a prediction, you know the actual label or actual value, and the difference between this error, and it predicts an error for your observation. So for any new observation that is coming in, you can tell what the error would be, and if mean average error um, is above the threshold that you set up, then you can also see that in the monitoring. You see how the distribution is changing. So I guess, yeah, you need alerting, but you also need to see how actually the distribution is changing over time in the monitoring dashboard.
These are great. I love the question, guys. Let's get another last round of questions for Maria. But so far, I hope you learned a lot when it comes to ML ops. I know this is it's honestly, I think, Maria, you're one of the first people that introduced ML ops to me in my world, because I thought everything is taken care of machine learning engineers or data science teams, and DevOps are kind of there to like support everything. But it's interesting how we have a new role, right? It's I don't know how new it is, by the way.
Well, I think the word MLOps became popular maybe how many years ago? Maybe like 3, 4 years ago. It started becoming a thing because I think 8 years ago, first large companies tried to bring models to do something with data science, and then they realized without a um, proper function, you can't really get value out of this data science investment. And it comes because there is a big wall between two departments. Data science, previously known by as data analysts, I think, were originally more in the business domain. They were part of the business teams. And the DevOps people were part of the IT. And I know business doesn't have permissions to deploy anything usually. That's already where the problem start existing. That there is a wall between these two departments, and to deploy anything, you need to create a request to IT to do it. But that's not how machine learning works, right? Data scientists need to have all permissions needed to deploy things to production themselves. Maybe not data scientists, but data science departments, and need to have that function themselves. And that's fight that many organizations had to fight. And I think that's how the whole concept of MLOps started. You need to, yeah, you need to build it, and you need to maintain it yourself without relying on DevOps that have no idea about machine learning usually. Because the requirements are different. As I mentioned, there are more moving pieces in ML projects than there are in the standard software problems, and that's why it requires different set of skills.
Yeah, I love this historical background, because it must be frustrating for data scientists that, because it's a continuous workflow. If you do not have access to the production, how can you continuously improve it or make sure it's running?
Yeah, well, exactly. And I've seen that, like people were sending zip files with their code via email to DevOps. Yes,
Okay.
and then
That's-
and
yeah.
then getting error messages back in the email again, and couldn't reproduce.
Oh no.
Yeah, you can imagine how long it's gonna take to deploy anything.
Wow. Wow. No, yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, that's interesting. I like how, Maria, your background is completely different, because I was mainly working in the startup scene, and I could see how things are just like so much more faster, and you're okay with failing. Especially, I feel like in America, you just have to make sure that you fail forward and you don't make huge mistakes.
Yeah.
But otherwise, everyone is just a lot more patient and looking forward for like innovative ways to come up and use these new tools. But I'm curious about the innovation in Europe. I know that Netherlands is one of the hub spots for AI. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are there any like open source initiatives going on there too, maybe? Or
Yeah, that's a good one. But I think the creator of Polars is actually Dutch. And yeah, they started the company Polars. It's an alternative to Pandas, much better, written in Rust. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. So yeah, Polars is Dutch. DuckDB is Dutch. I mean, the creators of DuckDB are coming from the creator of Python is a Dutch person. We have a lot of yeah Dutch people that are innovating. But yeah, corporates are slow though. But it's everywhere in Europe like that. It's much corporates in the US also are very conservative, but less than in Europe, I think.
wait, I thought Dutch is like people from Netherlands, isn't it? Or is it always confused?
Um, yeah, well, Dutch are people. Yeah, Dutch are people. These are people from Netherlands. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
but you
Danish are
shouldn't call the Netherlands Holland. You should not do that though, because Holland is a province.
huh, it's not a it's
South Holland to North Holland.
Holland
Yeah.
is a separate country, no?
No, no, no. Holland is a province in Netherlands.
Oh wow. Okay, geography class. Yes, for me. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I know we can talk about this forever, but you should definitely go and give Maria a follow on LinkedIn if you haven't already. Follow her Substack with, I don't know how often do you guys post, but pretty consistently.
Yeah, we used to post every week, and we will come back to it. But both me and Bashak are moving houses, and it's tough. So, but we
Oh,
will come back to it for sure.
wow, what a coincidence, both of you, because both of you are co-founders, right, of the MLops
Yes,
Marvelous.
and we are both really in yeah in a lot of changes at the
Yeah,
moment.
I should definitely say hi to her. Uh, but yeah, guys, thank you so much for your thoughtful, amazing questions, and thank you for the time that that you came for the community and contributed that way. And Mert, thank you for popping in. I know you do. By the way, you know Mert. You must know him.
Yes, of course, he comments a lot on our stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah, yes.
Yeah, if you haven't already, guys, connect with each other, share your LinkedIn's. This is all about networking too. And good luck on your projects. Oh, we have Andy here too. That's awesome. One of my friends. So I'm so happy to see everyone. If you have one last burning question, maybe Maria will answer this. Maybe not, we'll see. But otherwise, I will
Send
check.
me a DM.
So
I try to answer all DMs.
that's
So yeah,
right.
if you have a question, you can do that, and it inspires me to, to create the content as well. Like sometimes people ask me, and then oh yeah, that's a great question. Maybe many people have it, and then I write a post about it.
Yeah, that's a great way to come up with ideas for content ideas. Ask them here too. Ask them in LinkedIn, and uh, and I hope to see you soon. Hopefully, this was not the last one. This was our first talk with Maria in our community. More to come. More to come from MLops scene. And yeah, perfect. I think people are just trying to say their last thank yous and goodbyes, so we can read them and say goodbye. By the way, Russia. Which part of Russia you're from, Maria?
Well, I am from Kirov. I don't know. Do you know this place? It's somewhere between Moscow and Nizhny Novgorod, and further than Nizhny Novgorod. It's 1,000 kilometers north to from Moscow.
Oh
It's
wow.
quite cold there, minus 45 in the winter Celsius. I don't know how much is in Fahrenheit. Um, but yeah.
That's very cold. And you've been to in Netherlands for 10 years, right?
Yeah, 11 years, and before I lived 1 year in Belgium, in Antwerp. So
Yeah.
yeah, quite some long time outside of Russia.
beautiful, beautiful countries. I visited last year and had a road trip to Netherlands. I was like, oh my
Oh,
gosh, I was
nice.
like, the grass is so green and everything. The cows are so happy and clean. But but amazing. I would love to visit you in Europe. Feel free to come whenever you come to Silicon Valley. Let us know. We'll
Yeah,
gather. But
awesome.
great, everyone. Thank you again, Maria, and hope to stay in touch with you.
Yeah, we definitely will.
Awesome. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.